At 6:12 a.m., a passerby called 911 to report a car engulfed in flames on a quiet suburban road. When firefighters arrived, they found something far worse than they expected. Inside the charred vehicle was the body of 33-year-old Danielle Carter, a devoted mother of two who had just filed for divorce the day before. She had told friends she was finally ready to start over. But someone else had other plans. This wasn't an accident. It was a message, and investigators were about to uncover a twisted story of control, betrayal, and murder. To the outside world, Danielle Carter and Marcus Carter were the picture of a perfect couple. High school sweethearts from Greenville, South Carolina. Their story began like a classic romance. Two teenagers in love, dreaming of a future together. Danielle was bright, outgoing, and known for her big heart. She worked as a nurse, often picking up extra shifts at the hospital just to support the family. Marcus, on the other hand, was more reserved. He worked in construction and had a reputation for being quiet and disciplined, though a bit controlling even early on. They got married just 2 years after graduation. Danielle was only 20. By 25, she had 2 children and a mortgage. Life moved fast. And though Danielle loved being a mother, friends noticed she began to change. Her once bubbly personality became quieter, more withdrawn. She stopped attending gatherings, always saying Marcus didn't feel comfortable around her friends. Behind closed doors, their marriage was far from perfect. Family members would later say that Marcus had a temper, one that could switch on and off like a light. It started with possessiveness, wanting to know where Danielle was at all times, checking her phone, even showing up at her job unannounced. At first, Danielle brushed it off as jealousy, but it soon turned into isolation. She stopped posting on social media. Her phone was always on silent around Marcus. Even her relationship with her parents grew distant, as Marcus insisted they were bad influences. Danielle's co-workers noticed bruises on her arms and asked questions, but she always smiled and said it was nothing. "I'm just clumsy," she'd say, quickly changing the subject. No one could prove anything, and Danielle never filed a report. But behind that quiet smile, she was growing tired and scared. By year 10 of their marriage, Danielle had started keeping a private journal. In it, she wrote about her fears, her plans to leave, and the dreams she had buried for so long. She wanted to go back to school and become a nurse practitioner. She wanted to give her kids a better life. But she knew one thing for certain. Marcus would never let her leave easily. In the months leading up to her death, Danielle began taking small steps. She quietly met with a divorce attorney. She opened a separate bank account in her name. And for the first time in years, she started reconnecting with old friends. One of them, Angela, said Danielle had finally started to sound like herself again. But Marcus noticed a change too, and he didn't like it. He questioned every phone call, every late shift at the hospital. Danielle told Angela that Marcus had started sleeping with a knife under his pillow. He claimed it was for protection, but she didn't believe him. Something in him had shifted. Still, Danielle pressed on. She made copies of important documents and left them with her sister. She even arranged to rent an apartment on the other side of town. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Danielle did what she had feared for years. She filed for divorce. She handed the papers to her attorney and texted her sister with a simple message. "I finally did it. It's done." That night, she made dinner for her kids, helped with their homework, and put them to bed like it was any other day. But something felt different. Danielle kept checking the windows. She jumped at small noises. According to her neighbor, the porch light stayed on all night. What happened after that, no one can say for sure. What we do know is this. By morning, Danielle Carter's car was found on fire in a remote area just 15 minutes from her home. Her body was inside, burned beyond recognition. The woman who had finally gathered the courage to leave never got the chance to start over. The signs were there, but like many victims of abuse, Danielle Carter either didn't recognize them at first or tried to believe they weren't as serious as they felt. What started as subtle control soon became something darker. And as her relationship with Marcus began to deteriorate, the cracks in their picture-perfect marriage grew harder to hide. Friends say Marcus had always been possessive. Even in the early years, he didn't like Danielle spending time without him. At first, it seemed sweet, protective, even, but the charm faded quickly. Soon, he insisted on checking her phone. He wanted to know who she was texting, where she was going, and when she would be back, down to the minute. Danielle once told a co-worker that Marcus had installed a location tracking app on her phone without asking. He said it was for safety, she explained. "But I think it's because he doesn't trust me." That same co-worker recalled that Danielle started dressing differently too, more modestly, always double-checking her appearance before leaving work to avoid a fight. Arguments became more frequent. Neighbors reported hearing shouting from inside the house at odd hours. Danielle would often be seen outside, pacing the driveway, talking quietly on the phone, wiping her eyes. One neighbor, Mrs. Leary, said she once saw Danielle sitting alone in her car for nearly an hour after pulling into the driveway, seemingly afraid to go inside. There were red flags behind closed doors as well. Marcus didn't allow Danielle to have social media for years. When she finally reactivated her Facebook profile, she posted only photos of her kids, never herself and never with Marcus. When someone would tag her in an old memory, it would be gone within hours. Behind all of this was a chilling pattern: control, isolation, and fear. Danielle slowly stopped attending family gatherings. Her sister, Nicole, said Danielle made excuses every holiday. She'd say the kids were sick or Marcus had to work, Nicole recalled. But I could hear in her voice she was scared. In private conversations with her closest friend, Angela, Danielle began to open up. She'd talk about the verbal abuse, how Marcus would call her names, belittle her dreams, and accuse her of cheating whenever she wore makeup. But it wasn't just words. Danielle once showed Angela a bruise on her arm and claimed it happened when Marcus grabbed her during an argument. She laughed it off, but her hands were shaking as she said it. There were signs in their children too. Her oldest, just 9 years old, started acting out in school. He was getting into fights, refusing to speak to teachers. During a parent-teacher meeting, Danielle broke down in tears and said, "I don't know what's happening anymore." But deep down, she did. She just couldn't say it aloud. Eventually, even the small things felt like traps. If Danielle was 5 minutes late from work, Marcus accused her of lying. If she smiled at a male co-worker, he'd accuse her of being unfaithful. She began living in a constant state of anxiety, walking on eggshells, trying to avoid setting him off. But perhaps the most terrifying moment came just a few weeks before she filed for divorce. Danielle confided in Angela that she woke up one night to find Marcus standing over her while she slept. He wasn't saying anything, just staring. When she asked what he was doing, he simply said, "Just making sure you're still here." Danielle told Angela. It gave her chills. She started sleeping with her phone hidden under the pillow and the bedroom door locked. She knew things weren't just bad anymore, they were dangerous. But with 2 kids and no real support system, Danielle didn't know how to leave. She had to plan carefully, quietly. One wrong move, she feared, could cost her everything. And in the end, it did. For Danielle Carter, leaving wasn't just a decision. It was a matter of survival. After years of walking on eggshells, shrinking herself to avoid setting off Marcus's anger, she had finally reached her breaking point. She didn't want her children growing up thinking love looked like fear. And she didn't want to spend one more day pretending the man who once promised to protect her wasn't slowly destroying her. In the weeks leading up to the divorce, Danielle was careful, very careful. She knew Marcus watched her every move, so she started creating a plan behind closed doors. She opened a private bank account and began transferring small amounts of money, nothing large enough to set off alarms. She gathered documents, birth certificates, marriage license, insurance papers, the deed to the house. She made copies and stored them at her sister Nicole's house, just in case. She also began looking for a place to live. Quietly, she arranged a rental apartment across town. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, but it was safe. Hers. A place where her kids could sleep without hearing screaming through the walls. She told her sister, "I don't care if we have to eat ramen noodles for a year. I just want peace." On Monday, March 4th, Danielle took a personal day from the hospital where she worked. She dropped the kids off at school like normal, then drove straight to her lawyer's office. It was a small practice run by a woman named Patricia Langston, who had helped several women in abusive marriages start over. Patricia would later tell police that Danielle was calm but clearly afraid. She kept looking over her shoulder like she thought he might be watching, she said. But she was ready. She had made up her mind. The paperwork was filed that morning. Danielle officially initiated divorce proceedings from Marcus Carter after 13 years of marriage. In the filing, she listed irreconcilable differences, but told her attorney she had documented emotional abuse and feared for her safety. She also asked for full custody of the children, citing concerns about Marcus's mental stability and unpredictable behavior. After the documents were signed, Danielle sent a text to her sister Nicole that read, "I finally did it. It's real now. She even included a smiley face. That night, she sent one more message to Angela, her best friend. Pray for me. He doesn't know yet. But Marcus would know soon enough. When he was served with the divorce papers later that afternoon, neighbors said they could hear shouting from inside the house. One described the noise as violent, like something was breaking. Another said Marcus was pacing outside in the driveway for nearly an hour, just smoking and staring into space. Danielle, meanwhile, was keeping calm for the kids. That evening, she picked them up from school, made dinner, and helped with homework like it was any other Monday night. But according to her sister, Danielle had told her earlier that day, "If something happens to me, don't let him get the kids. Promise me." She locked the doors that night, double-checked the windows. She didn't sleep much. Her phone stayed by her side, volume on high. Danielle knew Marcus well enough to understand that silence didn't mean peace. It meant planning. And deep down, she sensed that leaving Marcus wouldn't be the end of the nightmare. It might be the start of something worse. By sunrise, Danielle's worst fear would come true. Less than 24 hours after filing for divorce, her car would be found burning on a rural road just outside of Greenville. And what police would uncover next would shake the entire community to its core. March 4th, 2024. It was a Monday night like any other in Greenville, South Carolina. Cool air, quiet streets, and homes winding down from the workday. But inside the Carter household, there was a heaviness in the air, unspoken tension, the kind you feel in your chest before a storm. Danielle had just done the hardest thing she'd ever done. File for divorce from Marcus Carter, the man she spent over a decade with, the father of her children, and the person who had slowly become her greatest fear. But she hadn't told him in person. He'd been served the papers while she was out, and she hadn't heard from him all day. That silence was deafening. Danielle told her sister on the phone around 7:30 p.m. He hasn't said anything yet. Not a word. That's what scares me. She tried to keep the evening normal for her kids. They ate spaghetti together, watched an episode of their favorite cartoon. Danielle gave them baths, read a bedtime story, and tucked them in like any other night. But behind her soft voice and steady hands was panic. Her eyes kept darting to the front window. Her phone never left her side. At 9:12 p.m., she texted Angela, "He's in the garage. I think he's drinking." Angela responded, "Lock the doors. Don't talk to him tonight." Danielle replied with a simple, "Already done." Neighbors later said they saw Marcus outside around 10 p.m., pacing. One described him as agitated. Another said he was standing in the middle of the driveway staring at the house, unmoving. No one called police. Not yet. Inside, Danielle had locked the bedroom door. She was sleeping in the guest room with both children. It was a habit she had formed weeks earlier, when the arguments became too volatile. According to her sister, she had also packed a go bag, just in case she needed to leave in the middle of the night, but she never got the chance. Sometime between 1 o'clock and 2 a.m., Danielle left the house. There is still no confirmed explanation for why. Investigators believe Marcus may have lured her outside, perhaps claiming there was a problem with the car or with one of the kids. There was no forced entry, no sign of a struggle in the home. But by 2:37 a.m., her phone went dark. No more texts, no more calls, just silence. At 6:12 a.m., a 911 call came in. A jogger on a rural access road had spotted a car fully engulfed in flames near the tree line. Firefighters arrived within minutes, but the fire had already done its damage. Once the flames were out, they discovered a charred body in the driver's seat. The vehicle was later confirmed as Danielle Carter's. The fire was no accident. It had been started using an accelerant. The heat was so intense it melted parts of the dashboard. Investigators would later determine the victim had been dead before the fire even started. Her kids woke up alone that morning. Marcus told police he didn't know where Danielle had gone, claimed she left in the middle of the night after a fight. She was upset, he told them, said she needed air. But officers immediately noted something off. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't even asking where she was. It wouldn't take long for police to suspect that Marcus Carter wasn't just lying. He was hiding something. And what they were about to find would unravel the entire truth behind Danielle's final night. March 5th, 2024. Just after 6 a.m., a man out for his usual morning run spotted something strange along a quiet service road just outside the city limits. He saw thick black smoke curling into the sky and a bright orange glow coming from the tree line. As he got closer, he realized it was a car. It was on fire. He immediately called 911. By 6:18 a.m., first responders arrived at the scene. The flames had nearly consumed the entire vehicle. Fire crews got to work quickly, extinguishing the blaze. But when they opened the driver's side door, what they found stopped them in their tracks. Inside, the charred remains of the vehicle was a human body, slumped over the steering wheel, burned beyond recognition. The fire had been intense, calculated, and cruel. There was no license, no ID, and no personal items left inside. It was as if whoever started the fire wanted everything to disappear. But one thing they couldn't erase was the VIN, the vehicle identification number. Within an hour, investigators confirmed the vehicle was registered to 33-year-old Danielle Carter. Police arrived at Danielle's home around 8 a.m. Marcus answered the door, calm and emotionless. When asked where Danielle was, he told officers, "She left last night. We had an argument. She drove off and never came back." That statement immediately raised red flags. According to Danielle's sister Nicole, she had planned to leave with the kids later that week. Quietly, she would never have left them behind, and certainly not in the middle of the night. Officers noted that the children were still in their pajamas, asleep in the guest room. They hadn't even realized their mother was gone. Meanwhile, crime scene investigators were combing through the burned car. What they found painted a disturbing picture. Traces of accelerant, believed to be gasoline, were detected both inside and outside the vehicle. This wasn't just a fire. It was arson, and it was staged to destroy evidence. The medical examiner would later confirm that the victim, believed to be Danielle, had likely died before the fire started. No soot in the lungs. No signs of movement. She was already gone when the flames were lit. Cause of death, blunt force trauma to the head. Detectives returned to the Carter home with a search warrant. They seized Marcus's clothing, electronics, and security footage from nearby homes. But curiously, the Carter's home security system, installed just months before, was offline. The hard drive had been removed. That same afternoon, Danielle's sister Nicole arrived at the scene. The moment she saw the police tape and the scorched car, she broke down. "That's her," she cried. "That's her car." DNA tests would later confirm the remains inside the vehicle were, in fact, Danielle Carter, the loving mother, the woman who had finally filed for divorce just the day before, the woman who never got the chance to live the new life she planned. Now, the question wasn't just who did this, it was why. And the deeper investigators looked into Marcus Carter's behavior, the clearer it became that this wasn't a random act of violence. This was personal, intentional, and terrifyingly calculated. With the discovery of Danielle Carter's burned vehicle and her body inside, the Greenville Police Department launched a full-scale homicide investigation. What had originally been reported as a possible accident was now a murder scene, and all evidence pointed toward one devastating truth: Danielle didn't run away. She was silenced. Detectives wasted no time. The very next morning, they sat down with Marcus Carter for formal questioning. He was calm, too calm, dressed in gym clothes. Marcus maintained that Danielle had left the house sometime after midnight. "We argued about the divorce," he said. "She stormed out. I thought she was blowing off steam." But investigators weren't buying it. His timeline was vague. There were no phone calls, no text sent to her after she left. He hadn't reported her missing. He hadn't even called her once. For a man whose wife supposedly vanished in the middle of the night, Marcus was shockingly passive. Back at the scene, forensic teams continued combing through the charred vehicle. Along with the accelerant traces, they found broken glass near the passenger side, glass that didn't match the window fragments. It appeared the fire wasn't the only violent act that occurred. The front seat had blood spatter that was later matched to Danielle's DNA. Then came a break. Investigators recovered partial footprints near the back of the car. A size 11 men's sneaker, consistent with Marcus Carter's shoe size. Even more suspicious, the treads matched a pair of Nike shoes later recovered from the trunk of Marcus's own car. The soles were scorched, as if someone had tried to burn them and failed. Detectives returned to the Carter home and executed a second, deeper search. In the garage, behind a pile of old boxes, they found something chilling: a red gas can. The nozzle had residue that matched the accelerant used in the car fire. No fingerprints were found on the can. It had been wiped clean. But the digital trail told a different story. Investigators subpoenaed Marcus's phone records and GPS history. At 1:48 a.m., just over an hour before the 911 call, Marcus's phone pinged near the same remote access road where Danielle's burning car was found. He had told police he was asleep at home, but the data told a different truth. Marcus had left the house, traveled to that area, and returned home around 3 a.m., just as Danielle's phone stopped responding. Then came the surveillance footage. Though the Carters' own home system had conveniently gone offline, a neighbor's front-facing security camera captured Marcus's car leaving the driveway at 1:30 a.m. and returning at 3:05 a.m. No Danielle, just Marcus. At the same time, detectives interviewed family and friends. One story kept repeating. Danielle had been afraid. She told people Marcus was controlling, unstable. She'd been planning her exit carefully. Her sister, Nicole, provided text from Danielle just days before her death. One read, "If anything happens to me, it was him. I'm scared." But what really cracked the case wide open came from Marcus's own search history. Forensic techs retrieved recently deleted queries from his phone. How to burn a car completely? Does fire destroy DNA? And can you track a car without a GPS? These searches were made days, some even hours, before Danielle's murder. At that point, police had enough. The puzzle pieces were no longer scattered. They were forming a clear, haunting image. Just 72 hours after Danielle's body was found, Marcus Carter was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, arson, and obstruction of justice. He didn't fight it, didn't ask for a lawyer right away. As he was led away in handcuffs, he simply said, "She should have stayed." The investigation wasn't just about solving crime. It was about honoring a life. Danielle Carter had fought to free herself from years of control and fear. And while Marcus tried to erase her story in a blaze of fire and lies, the truth refused to burn. The trial of Marcus Carter began nearly a year later. The courtroom was packed. Danielle's family sitting quietly in the front row, clutching tissues and each other. The prosecution painted a brutal picture of a man who couldn't stand losing control. They walked the jury through the evidence. The GPS data, the deleted searches, the surveillance footage, and the blood in the car. Every detail tightened the noose around Marcus's carefully crafted lies. The defense tried to argue circumstantial evidence. That the GPS ping could have been an error. That the gas didn't have fingerprints. That someone else could have used his car or planted the shoes. But the jury didn't buy it. Not when they heard Danielle's own word from the text to her sister. Not when they saw the fear written in every message. Then came the moment that silenced the entire courtroom. Nicole took the stand. Through tears, she read Danielle's final text aloud. "He said if I ever left, I wouldn't make it far. I think he means it this time." 12 jurors looked on, some visibly shaken. The message was a warning, a prophecy, and now, undeniable proof of intent. After just 6 hours of deliberation, the verdict was read. Guilty on all counts. Marcus Carter was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. No emotion, no apology, just a cold stare, as if he still couldn't comprehend that he had finally lost. Outside the courthouse, Danielle's mother spoke to reporters. She tried to leave. That's all. She wanted a new start. He couldn't let her have it. But today we got justice. Today she was heard. Danielle's story is one of countless women trapped in silence, trying to escape toxic control before it's too late. Her courage didn't save her life, but it exposed a killer. And now, her voice echoes far beyond Greenville, because the truth doesn't die in the dark. It burns brighter than fear. Danielle Carter's story is a painful reminder that behind closed doors, danger can wear the mask of love. Her voice was nearly silenced, but in the end, justice spoke louder. Danielle Carter's story is a painful reminder that behind closed doors, danger can wear the mask of love. Her voice was nearly silenced, but in the end, justice spoke louder.